Start, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome to the Staffordshire Local Government Association Joint Waste Management Board today. First of all, do we have apologies? Liam?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Andrew Barrett, Carl Edwards, Carol Gibbs, Dave Hayward, Josh Presland and Rob Vernon.
Thank you for that. Obviously, people may still be trying to get in, so we will see what happens. But I've got Brian Jones, you're indicating.
Yes, good afternoon, Simon. Can I give apologies for Councillor Justin Johnson, and I'm standing in for him.
Excellent. We'll make a note of that. What we'll do is, because there's some new faces I've never met on this board before, if we go round the room, so to speak, and ask for people to tell us who they are and where they're from, starting with, I'll go from alphabetical order, Andrew Bird.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Andrew Bird. I'm the Head of Sustainable Environment at Newcastle under Lyme Borough Council.
Liam Archer.
Liam Archer, Member of Democratic Services Support Officer from Staffordshire County Council.
Brian.
Deputy Leader of Cannock Chase District Council.
Tim.
I'm Tim Cooper. I'm the Head of Waste for Sustainability for Staffordshire County Council.
Elizabeth.
Cabinet Member for Waste from Lichfield District Council.
Len.
Len Bates, South Staffordshire Council, Cabinet Member Community Services.
Nicola.
Thanks, Chair. I'm Nicola Kemp, Head of Service Commissioning at Staffordshire Moorlands District Council.
Lee.
Lee Booth, Interim Neighbourhood Services Group Manager at Stafford Borough Council.
Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mark Jenkinson, Assistant Director for Community Services at South Staffordshire Council.
Nigel.
Good afternoon. I'm Nigel Harris. I'm the General Manager of the Joint Waste Service between Tamworth and Lichfield.
Paul.
Afternoon, Paul Farrow, Environment Manager at East Staffordshire.
Ray.
Good afternoon, Ray Faulkner, Environment and Climate Change Portfolio Holder for East Staffordshire.
Sav.
Hi, Sav Scalise, Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, Portfolio Holder for Environment.
Clive.
Yes, good afternoon, all. Clive Thompson, Assistant Director at Staffordshire County Council.
And Yazan, sorry.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Isan Williams, Interim Waste and Services Engineer at Cannock Chase District Council.
Thank you. And joining me in the room is
Trevor Johnson, Environment and Recycling Portfolio Holder at Newcastle here.
And I'm Simon Tagg, Cabinet Member at the County Council for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. I think I've got everybody there. If some people more join, they will do, but I think we've got a full list now. So second item on the agenda is minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of April. Can we agree those as a correct record, those who are in attendance? Not seeing anybody not indicating. Okay, and then matters arising. Look to officers for this. Is there any matters arising which they are aware of, Tim?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, next item is the election of chair and vice chair. Historically, we never seem to have a vice chair, but until recently, as I explained earlier, we've had Jonathan Price, who is representing Stafford as the portfolio holder for their waste area, who was chair of this. So we've got a vacancy on the chair now. So obviously put it out to anybody that wishes to be nominated for it.
Can I nominate Simon Tagg for chairmanship? It just seems as though it would bring the whole thing together. So that's my nomination.
I'd like to second that. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Len. Is there any other nominations? No? Okay, so with the agreement of the room, I'm elected chair. Thank you for that, and particularly to the new members that have come on. I know there's a couple of new members that haven't been on the Waste Management Board before. Welcome. Vice chair position. Do we have any nominations for a vice chair position? Nobody rushing forward. Okay, so what we could do is put that to the next meeting, because I know there's a couple of members that aren't here that may be interested But if members are happy for us to pass that one over to the next meeting, which seems to be what happens with the vice chair position on this board, I believe, it gets getting pushed further away and nobody ever wants to take it. So, okay, but thank you for that. Obviously, I think as Trevor's pointed out, obviously I do chair the Sustainability Board, which is the meeting that's up next after this. I think the leaders particularly, when they envisaged the Sustainability Board coming into being, was that possibly at a future date, both this board and that could be merged into one and have two parts on their agenda for the waste agenda and also the sustainability climate change agenda. And of course, one of our baseline pledges, which all districts and the county have signed up to, is in the area of waste via the sustainability agenda. So it seems sensible in the future to bring them together, and we'll work out how we can do that so that we do get both agendas which are vitally important to our districts and our county going forward, that we get appropriate scrutiny of both and good decision making on both as well. Item 5 then is a summary progress report, and I'm going to hand over to Tim for this one.
I'm going to hand straight over to Andrew, because I think Andrew's going to pick this one up, okay. And he's going to pick the next item as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chair, and through you. I've just put a very, very small PowerPoint presentation together on this, which hopefully will benefit new members. So bear with me while I now share my screen.
Yeah.
Has it come through?
It has, yeah.
Okay, so right, let's see where we go. View. Okay. Just a quick thanks to Matt from Staff Smalllands for pulling the Q4's figures together. This is effectively a sort of rolling progress report on all of the members of the Joint Waste Management Board's recycling performance over the years, and we update it for the board every quarter, so for new members. I think what we've seen, and particularly over the pandemic of the last couple of years, is that the trajectory that we were all seeing as somewhat plateaued, and in many cases actually started to go the other way, apart from my own authority. So I'll just pop that in there. We do seem to be bucking the trend at the moment, as ours is going in the opposite direction. It's just unfortunate there's just two authorities data that we couldn't get. I think that's probably due to the sort of tight time frames, but as I say, normally we try to get everybody's here, so it's a useful guide to how we're all doing. If I move on to the dry recycling rate, so this is just taking the dry recycling, not the bits that we see that go for composting, so not the garden waste and not the food waste that's for us here in Newcastle is separate, and for Staff Smalllands is combined with the garden waste. And you'll see again a range of figures there, but probably more aligned really. So our performance on dry recycling is relatively even. We've got some couple of high performers in terms of Lichfield and Tamworth, followed by ourselves. So and then going down into the sort of lower 20s. And then this really is the important one. This is the kilograms per household. So this is the residual waste. So the waste that effectively goes to the Handford Energy from Waste Plant and W2R at 4 Ashes, the Veolia plant down south of the county. And this is the bit that we saw certainly during the pandemic. Residual waste arisings increased dramatically as more people were obviously having to stay at home, and it put quite a lot of pressure on services. And what's interesting is that a number of authorities, whilst it's come down, it's probably not come down to pre-pandemic levels, apart from, unfortunately, my head's going to get rather big now, apart from ours, which has come down dramatically. But we think that's probably to do with the fact that we introduced our new recycling service in the first lockdown, and also we've been really pushing on our separate food waste service, so that does seem to have had a marked effect on performance. But this one is one we really need to keep an eye on. And I'll just, these are some slides that Tim usefully with Kay put together. I think Tim probably a couple of years ago, 2019, I seem to recall. But effectively, this is looking at the capacity of the energy from waste plants up to 2040. And as we can see there, as we start to get to the end of this decade, effectively we're in danger of running out of capacity. And of course, these figures, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, were obviously produced pre-pandemic, and as I've just said, what happened during the pandemic was that we got huge increases in residual domestic waste. So actually, these figures we probably need to look at again over the next sort of 6 months. But effectively, we've got a line at the end of this decade where capacity could become a problem. Likewise, this is the Hanford data from Stoke, and as you can see, around about a similar time frame, that plant or its successor, however that's configured, again, capacity could become an issue there. So it really is important to us sort of going forward that we try to maximise where we can, diverting material into the recycling stream and into our composting streams. Of course, none of this takes account of the fact that we will all have to be undertaking separate food waste services before 2030. So, you know, hopefully that will take a sizable amount of material out. At the moment, for us in Newcastle, it's taking about 7.5% on our recycling performance. So that's the sort of level we believe it could be higher. Just while we're on that, just to have a look at some compositional analysis, and this was a detailed analysis that we had undertaken again pre-pandemic back in 2019. And as you can see, these are effectively the various constituents that we looked at, and as you will see there up in the top left-hand side, where food waste, overall in the county there is the residual waste is made up of around about 45.52 kilograms per household per year, and that equates to about 31%, which is quite frightening actually. And then as we go down, there's the other elements that effectively could go into our dry recycling services, apart from Tetra Paks, which not all of us do. But as you can see, there's still, 3% paper, 3% card, 3% glass bottles and jars. So sizable amounts, really. Non-target plastic, quite high levels as well. So by non-target we mean things like film, hard plastic, so not the bottles and pots, tubs and trays that we all take. So food waste, we can see getting that out would result in quite a change to our residual waste arisings. And I think just to end on, really these are the challenges. So resource and waste strategy, which I'll come on to in the next agenda item, sets a recycling target for England of 65% of municipal waste by 2035. As you can see on the figures that I presented at the beginning of this presentation, we're hovering in the sort of mid to upper 40s, so we've got a long way to go. As I've just mentioned, we will have mandatory separate food waste in all English authorities. Effectively, plans will have to be in place by 2025, not necessarily operations, but I'll come on to that in a minute. We're also seeing an awful lot, and have seen an awful lot, of lightweighting of packaging. So when we first started recording our recycling performances, basically packaging was a lot heavier, and there's been a huge amount of lightweighting that's taken taken place, certainly in the last sort of 10 to 15 years. The other thing is that we don't know what the effects of the deposit return scheme, the DRS system, will be, because we're still awaiting details of that, but it's likely to take material out of our curbside schemes. And effectively, to ensure that the ERF capacity within the county is used to treat only waste effectively where there is no viable option. So that's the challenge for us, really. And these need to become the sort of points that we need to consider as we go forward, and in particular as we start to develop our sort of replacement joint municipal waste strategy. So happy to take any questions, but I'll stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, is there any questions to Andrew? At the moment, got Tim indicating.
Yeah, it was just really from just to pick up on Andrew's point about the tonnages graphs from going into the W2R and Hanford. We have modelled more up-to-date figures than that. We've modelled various solutions around the tonnages in terms of when COVID hit, the waste tonnage, I think it increased by about 20,000 tonnes. And so we've modelled scenarios of what if it doesn't come down, what about if it doesn't return to pre-COVID levels, and what if it sort of lands in the middle ground. The main thing really there is it doesn't change the outcome of the graph you've seen there. If anything, all that would do is just bring that point of we run out of capacity a lot sooner. At the minute, we think that the tonnages are returning a bit more back to pre-COVID levels, which is a good sign. But it's quite interesting that it's not the case for the DMR. So that's something we'll probably have to go away and have a look at and try and assess.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Got nobody else indicating, but I think as Andrew's put on the last slide, we can see the challenges there that are facing us as a board and a set of councils as well. And also that residual issue, which we've just been talking about, is a key issue, isn't it, really? The less that goes to residual, the better for us in every single way. We try to meet our targets and our climate change targets. So that's something we've got to work hard on. I believe the next presentation is you again, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just a verbal one, really, because there's nothing really to update. So we still, here we are sort of heading towards mid-July. We are still awaiting government to release the details of the consultation on deposit return schemes and consistency in collections. So they released details of the extended producer responsibility side a couple of months ago. All three were supposed to come out at the same time. They haven't. I honestly don't know what's going on, but I think industry now is getting incredibly frustrated by the lack of government's response to this. And given the challenges that are likely to come out of the resource and waste strategy, in particular around consistency in collections, and I've touched on the fact that separate food waste will be mandatory. There is huge investment that is required in the industry, not just by us as local authorities, but in particular in the private sector. And the private sector waste companies are now extremely frustrated at the lack of any progress here. And if you think about it, the number of English local authorities that may have to go to market for food waste all at the same time, all requiring vehicles, all requiring food waste caddies, all requiring liners, all requiring comms, you can see it being an absolute car crash in effect. Not least the fact that the Environment Agency seem to be absolutely hopeless in terms of turning round environment permits. So they are way behind, and yet we will need infrastructure in place in the next few years, even in Staffordshire, and I know we'll come on to that a little bit later in the agenda. But we're going to need more infrastructure, particularly around transfer and the like, and all of those will need permits, and there's a huge backlog. So the longer that this gets delayed, the more pressure it will put on, and the inevitable will be that the country as a whole doesn't reach the targets that the government set out to achieve, which is really unfortunate. I sit on the board of LARAC, which represents local authorities. Tim is a member of Nordo, which represents the disposal authorities. And I know LARAC and Nordo, along with the ESA, who represent the private sector waste management companies, have written an open letter to the government basically outlining the sheer frustration across the industry now, the lack of why are we still waiting to hear what the outcome of the consultations are. I don't believe there's been a reply as yet, probably because there's a bit too much else going on in Westminster, I suspect. But I'm happy, Liam, that we've got a copy of that letter if we want to put it in with the minutes. I think it might be useful. But unfortunately, I've no other update than that because we're still waiting.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I think we will put that the letter in with the minutes. I think it should be of interest to all members of the board. And I think, yeah, we're in a situation now where we're waiting for effectively a new government to come in, aren't we? Let's hope that's sooner rather than later, and that will add some clarity. But I think even before the recent upheavals over the last month or so, there's been no sort of clarity or move forward on this for a while, has there? And I think here in Newcastle, rather, we were filling consultations in about this years ago, weren't we?
Absolutely.
And it hasn't been moved forward. Open it up to any comments or questions to Andrew on his second report there. I've got Mark Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess, Andrew, one for your team of the men in the know on the relevant boards and bodies. Is it the fact that there is a plan there and government know what they want to do, but they're not going to release it? Or is it just we're at the point where there isn't a plan, or we haven't got the indication on either at this stage?
It's a good question, Mark. The sort of intel, we simply don't know. You normally get when I'm involved in a number of sort of stakeholder groups, and you sometimes do get the nod of what might be happening, but no, there is nothing happening at all. And even the EPR side, the extended producer responsibilities, whilst they release the outcome of the consultations, the work to sort of make it all happen again is completely stalled, which is really worrying because effectively from April next year, we as local authorities are supposed to get paid through extended producer responsibility for our curbside collections, and indeed, Tim's materials he's collecting on household waste sites. There is no sign of what will be the scheme administrator, which is the body which will administer those payments, even being in place at the moment. And here we are, as I say, in mid-July. So it's really worrying times. And that affects, in terms of us as a partnership, our debate around what happens with recycling credits and things like that, because we simply don't know. So it is massively frustrating. But yes, Mark, there is literally nothing coming out at all, and no indication of why things aren't happening. One could surmise different things about, is it around garden waste and they want to make it free, but they're having a lot of internal wranglings about it. I simply don't know. I would hope that the whole thing wouldn't be stalled by things like that, in all honesty, but it's very difficult to understand. And as I say, DEFRA civil servants have gone very, very quiet on the whole thing, unfortunately.
Thank you, Andrew. Any more questions or comments to Andrew? No. I think if the board are in agreement, what we could do when a new minister team is in place is to write to that new minister and just put put ourselves on the radar, perhaps as a county, but also making that sort of putting pressure on for them to make an announcement on this so we can get on with it.
That will be really helpful, Chair. Yeah, I'm sure we can draw something together on that.
And let's hope it's not the autumn by the time we have a minister in place, or a prime minister even. That would be better. Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you, Andrew, for that. Moving on then to item 7, which is date of next meeting. I bring Liam in here.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have a date for the next meeting set as yet. However, now we've had confirmation of the Chair, I intend to create a schedule of meetings for the remainder of 2022 and 23.
That'd be great. I think we're looking for the certainty on that, and we'll obviously consider. I think this meeting's going well at the moment online, isn't it? That we can have more meetings online of both boards, or if we bring them together, the board, and then probably meet annually or something, or a couple of times a year in person, because I know that's important too. But I think these virtual meetings should be used, particularly as we're obviously looking to reduce our carbon footprints. To be obviously meeting this way is the best. So we'll look out for those from Liam, and we'll have a meeting scheduled for the year so everybody can get them in the diaries and have enough notice. Item 8 is exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting because of items that are likely to disclose against information as defined by the Local Government Act. Do we all agree?
Agreed.